Hello, beautiful people. How you doing? Yeah, happy Sunday. It's the Major Show again. From Belfast. This is straight in Cathedral. You're welcome on board. Today's topic: foreign aids in African states. You're welcome to another intellectual fellowship. You're welcome to that your favorite platform that you learn from. You converse, we communicate, we share information, and we tell it the way it is. Straight and Cathedral. Today's topic is germane, it's contemporary, it's affecting and shaping the governance across African states. We want to assess how these means, either well or otherwise, to African countries in this contemporary time. But before I delve into the topic at hand, I would like to give a big shout out to someone. And before I give that big shout out to the person in question, I read somewhere recently that, we've been putting the narrative out there as to what is realistic compared to what has been the messages from religious cleric and leaders. And it seems as if Nigeria, being a materialistic society as it is right now, the peak of achievement seems to be being an elite. Being an elite in this essence means acquisition of all these materialistic things and the denial of humanity, your human feelings. So anytime you see elitism trying to portray humanity, it is merely a patronage. It will never be consistent. It will never be true. It will always be for a purpose, to achieve something. Street and Cathedral, we've been dealing with deep topics over the time. And these topics have been topics that affect us as human beings. So I appreciate Pastor Femi Lazarus for his podcast that has been bringing young individuals to share their stories. I want you to go listen to those germane conversations that these young people, bright future of Nigerians, have been sharing with Pastor Femi Lazarus. Don't just listen in between the lines. You will hear topics like drug addiction, prostitution, youth exploitation, parental exploitation and neglect, sexual exploitation, irresponsible governance, amongst many. Then these answers, many people would think, why? Why are we talking? Why are we trying to portray this? We are telling stories of the African realities and predicaments as it is. I have my guest, one of the most brilliant minds I have met over time. I'm going to accept his request now. But pardon me, to also share this link with the two other guests I am expecting. I'm not. I'm delighted. I'm happy that we still have youth, vibrant youth that are passionate about the motherland, like Dr. Abdulrahman, Babagana, that is going to come on board. People who are ready. You can see it in their soul. They're ready to render their voice to the narrative going on. Today's topic is going to be a class session. Today's topic, I want you to question many things. We will brush over history, project into the future, then reflect our present realities. A lot is going on with us, but this is the point where I am going to accept. Once again, my name is Dimeji Shodeke, and I want to thank you for always following Street and Cathedral. Hello, Doctor.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Doctor.
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine.
You good?
Shall I say Happy Ramadan or Ramadan
Yeah.
Kareem or
Ramadan Kareem. Anyone would do.
Ramadan Kareem?
Anyone would do. Yeah. Anyone would do.
Because
Yeah.
I know you're very, very faithful Muslim and you will
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
observing
Yeah.
it. How are you doing now in Scotland, sir?
Scotland is the way it is. Harsh weather, cold.
Yeah.
Things are getting expensive. So we just have to look for a way to adapt to all these things.
Exactly. Yeah. TK Kimani, please request to join this video, then I'll accept. Let me first say thank you for saying yes to join this platform. I know you're a very busy person. Everybody who have been reaching out to, I'm just trying to push a narrative, and that narrative, it's working. It's one thing when people start seeing the so-called quote and unquote celebrities. It's another thing when we start seeing ourselves as a member of the society and participating, and that is the angle I come in these movements.
Yeah.
It's an intellectual revolution. It's a revolution of the mind. It's an ethical revolution. Now do you spark that? Putting the responsibility in the hand of celebrities, if not us.
Exactly.
I really appreciate you.
Okay.
Hey, Olumba.
How you doing?
Man, you sure say no be you supposed to be king?
You don't why me. You don't why me again this month.
Kimani. You always come through with the swag, Never disappoint.
Now I did learn from you, boss.
How you doing, bro? How you doing, Kimani?
Hi,
I'm
how
all
is
right.
everybody?
You look like pounds.
We should.
Man,
How is everybody doing?
everybody's doing good. Everybody. I let me first say thank you to you guys. I was telling Doctor before you came on board that what Africa need is what we are doing.
Yeah.
We need intellectual
Exactly.
revolution, ethical revolution. And how do we put that in charge of the so-called celebrities who are chasing after elitism? We are the members of society. Every policy, you know what Dr. Foss said when he came on board? I said, how are you? Doctor made mention of the cost of things going on the high side. You will know that we are the one feeling the heat.
Yeah.
So why would we wait for some so-called celebrity to talk about our realities and predicaments? So this is what we are starting with Street and Cathedral.
Yeah.
Let me start the introduction based on punctuality. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to Street and Cathedral. And today's episode is going to be a class session. I told you, pick up your pen, your notes, you have to write. This is the kind of session you have to make reference. As a matter of fact, you have to say that you have to make reference in your thesis now that in Street and Cathedral, according to Dr. Babagana, according to Olumide, according to Kimani, because this is a certified argument that we are about to have. Let me start the introduction with one of my amazing brother, one of the most brilliant mind I've met. I met him while in Scotland. He has come to the studio while I was still with the Jambo Radio Scotland. He came as a guest, and of course, they say iron sharpeneth iron. When I had conversation with him, I knew this was a burning fire. You came to UWS studio when we first commenced, right?
Yeah.
3,000 miles.
3,000 miles,
And
exactly.
I saw someone who has been passionate, patriotic, not just loyal to Nigeria per se, but someone who loves Africa to the core. And in this conversation, I can tell that this person wish to witness, not just pray for a better Africa, to witness it. I remember we talked about your beautiful family, and I remember how we talked about our culture, the clash of culture, and how you wish that those African ethics are being imbibed if you're in an African environment.
Exactly.
I am talking about no other person, someone who has made his landmark. He came down here, broke all conventions, and you know what we've been known for is that, oh, like Trump said in his one of the statements while he was making political manifesto, one of the most profound statements that got me angry: black jobs. What are black jobs? What do you mean by black jobs? I do not think this subscribe to Dr. Abdulrahman, Babagana Buji. Why? Because what it will mean in that context is menial jobs, inferior jobs,
Exactly.
struggling jobs, underpaying jobs, modern slavery. But I have to bring eloquent Africans into this conversation as evidence that even in diaspora, there's nothing like black jobs. It's a competitive market, and we are able to compete. Thank you for representing us well. And ladies and gentlemen, he is a research assistant of the University of Strathclyde in Scotland. Welcome on board, Dr. Abdulrahman Babagana Buji.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here and to be among the linemans here. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I also have one of my amazing brothers, intelligent, upright. I can vouch for him. Why? Because we're in the same varsity together, the same department, the same level, the same course. He almost had my seats in class. Very amazing, very amazing, humble. And he's someone who, when you give him a task, he likes to represent himself well, to portray. And he also is representing well here. He's an executive officer. Beyond that, I have known him to be a vibrant youth who also is passionate about the motherland. He loves to be a cultural advocate. And I'm talking about no other person than my very, very good friend, my colleague, Olumide, Victor Ebire. You're welcome to Street and Cathedral.
Thank you so much, bro. It's a pleasure. It's been a long time coming. It's a pleasure, bro.
Thank you. To my amazing brother, another media expert, someone who we met also in Jambo Radio. But this man is versatile. I will do him no good by boxing him into being a media expert alone. How could you? With the swag, with the look, with the versatility, with intelligence, and the fact that it comes from one of the most historic and strongest country in Africa, Kenya, makes me endeared to him. We had conversation, but there's one thing that makes me also like him. I never forget African warriors. And that speaks a lot about your mindset, about who you are. This is a man who didn't just go to the radio to be doing things that are not conscious. He was going there to portray Pan-Africanism, bearing in mind that he has to sell African consciousness, sell Pan-Africanism, represent Black consciousness, and ensure that we export our realness to the world. Yeah, this is a man who I've seen from afar. I've talked to him closely, and I can vouch for his consciousness, his Pan-Africanism, and his agitation towards a better Africa. Thank you for saying yes, Antony Kimani.
Thank
He
you
is
so
a social
much, bro.
entrepreneur and a radio host, and you're welcome to Street and
Thank
Cathedral.
you. Thank you. Excited to be here.
So, Street and Cathedral, we are part of the creation. I could have just set up a studio and start calling my people physically, try to canvas many YouTube, money and all. But I realize that the peak of almost all Africans right now, which has most people have been conditioned, is elitism. And elitism in this bracket means the adornment of materialism. But the sad reality is the materialism that we don't create, but we consume. Not production, but consume. But today's topic will delve us deeper into the nitty-gritty of all these things that has been happening in Africa, international relations. We'll touch on history, we'll brush over what might be wrong. So before my first question, I want to throw this background information open. I want to ask a question about what you understand about foreign aid and how African states has been reacting with that concept called foreign aid. But permit me to read quotes of some of our most vibrant ancestors across the land. Nelson Mandela says, overcoming poverty is not an act of justice. No, it's not an act. Let me take that again. According to Nelson Mandela, he says, overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is an act of justice. It is the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and decent life. We move to Thomas Sankara's stance on foreign aid. His foreign policy was centered on anti-imperialism. He rejected loans and capitals from organizations such as IMF, but he would accept funding or any kind of aid in form of machineries for farmers. He preferred that. Fertilizers. He said we can grow things in our land. We don't need money. He will feed you, controls you. That's what Thomas Sankara believed. Amilcar Cabral. Amilcar Cabral believed in structural development and the assimilation of traditional elements into a cohesive unit. I'm going somewhere, please. Then I'm going to stop on Kwame Nkrumah for now. Kwame Nkrumah believed that foreign aid was used to keep former African colonies under the control of European powers. He proceeds that it gives Europeans increased profits. So, having said this, from our ancestors who have interacted intellectually with the global space, understand global economics. So we wonder, then why has there been some sort of, collection, active, patronage of this foreign aid? So I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to start the question from Dr. Babagana due to punctuality. What do you understand? Just open this conversation. Foreign aids and African state, before we even come to Trump, what has been going on for years?
Once again, thank you very much for having me. So I think coming into foreign aid, not only Africa, but to Asia and some part of the world, is where the wealthy countries actually give maybe financial and material aid to the what do you like underdeveloped or developed or the developing countries. That's how they actually help the ones that are less privileged. Then the question now is, why are they doing all these things? Why will somebody just carry money will give you some kind of military aid, some financial aid, some material aid. Why would somebody just give you all these things? So these are the underlying questions. So from your introduction, you mentioned people like Nelson Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, very visionary African leaders. I would say these are people that have vision for Africa. These are people that know how where the world was actually heading to. So these people have actually questioned the very meaning of that aid that is being given to Africa. Why would they be giving us aid when we have all the mineral resources, when we have all the wealth, when we have everything it takes to be an independent country? Why should we receive
Doctor,
this aid?
doctor,
Yeah,
let me take this
yeah.
in. One would say that maybe they felt like because they were involved in the distortion of
That's
African
that, that's where I'm going to. That's I just want to give you the whole inside of why, So if you look at history, you come to realize that all the visionary leaders, one way or the other, they are either killed or ousted through coup, or they were actually replaced.
Why?
So in the quest to actually control the continent, that is the only way for them to bring their own leaders or their puppets to be the leaders so that they control the African country. So how do they control it? They control our wealth. They take our wealth. In return, they give us a what will I say, aid. So this aid is just like a chicken change. They just give us aid in the sense. So to me, all this problem is caused by the leaders that we had. The visionary leaders has been taken away, have been ousted. They brought their own puppets to act in their instead of them, and then they actually exploited the little that we have. So this is how the foreign aid actually came. So if you look at the category of foreign aids that have been given, it's mostly in the area of food, in the area of medical equipment, and some kind of counterterrorism. So this is what the West and the white people are using to actually control the African continent.
Thank you very much. I'm still going to come back to you. Let me take that
Yeah.
as an opening speech.
Yeah.
You made one profound statement of interference of government. I'm coming back for you.
Okay. Yeah.
I love that statement. Interference.
Yeah.
Olumide,
Yep.
same question. What has been going on for years? If our ancestors, our forefathers could understand this and try to advise or try to steer the course of Africa towards this angle, why didn't we steer in that direction?
Thank you for having me, first of all. I think the situation is more of a double-edged sword. First of all, there's no nation that can survive in isolation. You need international diplomacy. You need to relate with other nations. But the major problem with us as Africa has been the fact that we have always been the ones receiving, and it's not necessarily our fault as well. It's more to do with our leaders and the way, their mind has been conditioned. You've mentioned great people. You've mentioned the likes of Nelson Mandela, Nkrumah, and the likes. Most of the time, it starts off as, just diplomacy. Like I said earlier, no country can stand on its own. No nation can stand on its own. But it gets to a point where the Western world are very, very smart and intelligent. It just seeps in little by little. Why can't we help you with this? Why can't we help you with that? And it now depends on the will of our people. A lot of times we talk about this. Corruption is the foundation of all of this. In terms of even getting the aids and all, corruption is there. If, for instance, the US gives like $10 billion, you are so sure that maybe just a fraction will go to what is actually intended to do. The big chunk of it will go to the people getting it, and then, their immediate relatives and those that are very close to them. So this has been what has engineered and made these foreign aids over the years. It's supposed to be a good thing, to be honest. It's supposed to be a good thing, but it's been abused. And I would say it's the fault of our leaders and also us allowing the West to, control us.
Let me check this in. There was a time Nigeria economy was so strong, was at par, if not even ahead of the United Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about the early times when we discovered oil. It was said that even the welcome they perception of our leaders in America was tantamount to more like the welcoming of the world power. So Nigeria had prospects. Do you think this doesn't have to do? Do you think this is more of our people, of our own unmaking, or foreign interference, as Dr. said?
It's a accumulation of both. A classic example is the Middle East. The Middle East also discovered oil, but there is something about the people of the Middle East. If you read and you also study them, the way they've been able to hold their own as against the African continent, there are some lessons we can actually learn as Africans, as even African leaders. It's actually a leadership issue, but one thing brings another, so it has to work hand in hand. Bad leadership, as well as the opening for the West as well, in terms of their leaders taking advantage of the African situation. So it's more like our leaders selling us out, and in turn, we get to bear the brunt of it. That's how it has worked. For instance, the Middle East, like I made mention of, you hardly get a leadership issue. Like they're able to harness their resources. It's even people from the West that go over there as against Africa, where it's more like a leadership issue and also a mental issue. So these are the things that needs to be worked on. But we can always take lessons from the Middle East.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll take that as your opening speech. I know your name is Antony, but let me call you Kimani. You know why? We have a famous Kimani in Nigeria, Victoria Kimani. So that name,
I know her.
It's an homemade name in Nigeria. So let me adopt it to be my brother finally. Kimani. My question to you is the same. But give us an expose. I want to believe maybe Kenya is different from Nigeria. Maybe Kenya knew what we don't know. Maybe your own GDP and development is quite, topping the world power game right now. Maybe there's nothing like a human protest. Maybe you have everything at hand, and you're like, Nigeria, come and learn from us. Do you also have the same problem? Do you also take funds? Corruption?
We are actually worse because Kenyans are known to be dangerous online. We have had Kenyans typing directly to the IMF to tell them, do not give that money. Anytime Kenyans see there is 200 million being given to the president, they go online and text and type and block the systems there, emailing them, do not give any funds to Kenya, because the problem is that these funds are coming to a country and then they just disappear, and you find leaders driving and living lavishly.
Is it that you guys are too much? What makes
the money does not do what is meant to do? First of all, taking this back, foreign aid started only after colonization, because before colonization, the European countries and all these countries were actually in Africa doing things themselves, pillaging all our resources themselves. After they left and we gained independence, that's when the concept of foreign aid to set up our political whatevers, because we were underdeveloped. But that was just the way they used to remain in Africa without actually being physically there. And then they will use our elites. So the representation for us, if you look at, I don't know about Nigeria, but if you look at a country like Kenya, the leaders we've had are coming from the same families. These people have connections. Say, like, let's speak about our former president, Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru and the UK establishment, like the Queen, these people are in bed together, During COVID, we saw Uhuru send like roses to the NHS for worth millions for free to say sorry to them. You see, some things that happen. We've had our
NHS
president
in Kenya. Do you mean NHS in Kenya?
No, we don't have NHS. People are dying in Kenya and you're sending roses to the UK. He's been mentioned in multiple papers.
Maybe he's trying to return the aid. Also, that's a problem.
Yeah, because the aid has gone to his personal pocket. So anyway, aid and foreign aid is a new concept. It's not very old, and it only started after colonization. Every country in this world has debt. Even the US has debt. So you have to wonder why the US is owing China. yet wants to loan Africa. It's to retain influence and control.
Exactly.
Foreign aid is not meant for development.
Yeah, you see, three of you, I'm coming back for you. Babagana, it's time to come back for you.
Yeah.
Now let's go deeper. Understanding policy shifts, we can see there's a paradigm shift in US policy coming with Donald Trump's administration.
Yeah.
We call this transactional aid now. There is no more free bites. So my question is, particularly in this Trump administration, his new policies, what are the short and long-term effects of this shift on the relationship between African states and US and its implications as well? What do you think? Is it positive or negative, Doctor?
Yeah, from my own point of view, I will come in both sides. It's positive and it's negative from my own point of view. So it is positive in such a way that this significant shift in the US foreign aid will maybe make some of the leaders that are sleeping to actually wake up, to actually fight for the country, to fight for the continent, and maybe come with policies that will be beneficial to the country and the whole continent, because we are used to getting things free. Anybody that gets things free does not think outside the box. This is the disadvantage. So you normally see some beggars begging money. So you keep on giving the beggar money. That beggar will not go outside that box to actually think that how can I make my own money since I get free money. So this is the situation with some of these African countries. So with this shift now, I hope we are just hoping, because you never know. We hope and pray that this African country will sit down and re-strategize to see how they can actually fill the gap that has been blocked by this aid. So that's on the positive note. So on the negative note, this aid has actually made people to depend on this aid for a very long time. Let me chip in with one of the areas that this aid has been of significance important to Africa: the malaria and HIV/AIDS. So when I was discussing this topic with somebody last 2 days or 3 days, so she was telling me that her sister is suffering from AIDS. That with this kind of policy shift, the medication that they get and the antidote that they get for AIDS will automatically stop. And she was telling me that it's going to cost her a lot of money. So automatically, we are looking at the number of people that are getting this kind of free medication in Nigeria and Africa and West Africa for free. These are things that are given for free.
Would you blame international companies,
No.
international countries,
So
for Africans not developing their own country to that
yeah,
state?
that was the first point I made. That is good because it will make us to wake up to actually try to do things for ourselves. But the thing is, it has been there for a very long time. As my friend, my colleague here, Kimani, says, during all this started during the colonial era. These people came, colonized us. So when they left now and they gave us independence, they still want to retain that relevance. So this is what they say: okay, since we are not here now, we'll be giving you aid to bridge the gap of where you people are left. So that's why the world is divided into first world and the third world. Us, most of African countries, I'll tell you that they were third world countries, and we need it because we've depended on this for a very long time. So on the policy shift that Donald Trump is claiming is America first, to me, in some part is of advantage, and I would like Africa being the richest and the wealthiest continent to stand on its feet, which is good for us. And on the second part, they've actually spoiled us with giving us free medication, free all of these things. So for us to adjust and actually stand on our feet, so many people are going to die. So many people are going to face the consequences. So my answer is on the both sides. But I hope our leaders will sit up and see how we can actually improve and how we can do without any aid from any country.
That's a very big goal, because we are coming to African leadership challenges very soon. That's a very big goal, Doctor. Olumide, same question, but before you answer, let me read the comments of Pascal Lamy. Pascal Lamy is the longest serving World Trade Organization director. So in relation to the new Trump's policy, he says that these threats are against the spirit of diplomacy. So he highlights the possible losers of globalization. to be the electorate. That's in America, not the middle class in rich countries. So there is an ongoing mass scale of ideology disputes. I'll break this down. The previous government administration before Donald Trump had the globalization ideology. Donald Trump said the future is for nationalists, not globalists, which means the MAGA movement is actually for American people to American country. They really want to make the American country great.
Just for
For
them.
them, regardless of international. So now you can see all the import tariffs and everything going on.
Yeah.
Do you think this is because they realized some way that them being a world power might be an illusion, or some countries are really, really gapping them? And what would you have to say to the fact that Pascal Lamy, when he was asked, I quote, verbatim, on African rising or falling, which side of the debate do you pretend with? He said, Africa is going to rise 100%. Do you also have that hope, like Pascal Lamy?
Oh. That's $1 million question, and I wish I had a crystal. I wish I had a crystal ball to see that, so I can give you an answer. But right now, the truth is, it's not looking like it, and I have to be realistic. It's not looking like it at all because of our leadership. It's not just in Nigeria; it's all across Africa. Well, a little bit of it I can see in the Francophone side of West Africa, countries like Burkina Faso, trying to, move away and be a bit self-sufficient. But the truth is, as long as we keep relying and, like my colleague said, you just sit back, lay back, and you're expecting aid, you can't do so much. That's the problem. We are absolutely too relaxed. Like our leaders are too relaxed, and it's a big problem. We are not able to think out of the box, and it's
What is the
helping.
box? What is the box?
The box should be. So let me give a typical example. In Nigeria, we have oil, like crude oil. Our refineries should be able to work. It's not rocket science. A lot of people are benefiting from this. The leaderships are benefiting from this. The Western world is benefiting from it as well.
Exactly.
We have to export there and bring it back, and it's times 2 or 3 times the price. It doesn't make sense. There are lots of stuff that don't make sense. So these are the little things. These are the little things, scenarios or situations that you see, and you're like, we have to buckle up. We have to sit up, and it all starts with the leadership. That's the truth.
Dangote refinery is here to stay.
Well, we've seen the politics behind it. We can obviously see loads of politics behind it. The truth is, there are things that are supposed to be normal, and I feel like until you leave Africa, sometimes certain things we celebrate are things that are supposed to be basic. So like the Dangote,
I think we all pitched tent with this.
Yeah, like the Dangote refinery is not supposed to be. It's supposed to be what the government should have done decades ago. It's supposed to be something we're supposed to be enjoying. You understand?
How could you riding on your statement? How could you phantom coming to this part of this world, watching videos of some of our commissioners, our politicians commissioning roads and water tank?
Hey, that's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, to be honest. Like, they are meant to be public servants serving us, right? These are things we are supposed to enjoy as elected people.
No,
But obviously, I think that's the mentality.
My point is, these are not fit to even be projected on media as if it is something special. So our politicians ride on that.
They ride on that as
special
well.
occasions to cut.
It's precept upon precept upon precept of ignorance. That's just the truth. Our people at the grassroots level, the person that will collect 10,000 naira, 5,000 naira for someone to be elected, and that person himself, when he gets there, is also fighting for himself. And then there's now the big brother, the Western world themselves, to also exploiting. So there are so many layers to this, and it will take a lot of mental shifts for us, to be honest, in order to reorientate ourselves. And the truth is, the bulk still stops with our African leaders. A classic example, I've said it before, is Burkina Faso. Like, the way it's a military government, but you can see the way the leadership is going, the way the leadership is projecting itself. And then their people are actually falling in line. You understand? If our leaders as well do not necessarily, like I also said, a country cannot, stay, you can't be isolated, you can't stay in a vacuum, you need help. But you don't go down to the level where you're now on your knees. If America says they are not helping you, it's like, bye-bye. We are not supposed to be there. We have the natural resources, we have the manpower, we have the intellect. We've got all of this that we can tap into. It's just the case of our leaders being short-sighted, our people being so short-sighted. If we think on the long run, like I said, the refineries, it's something that we would all benefit from. It's not so hard. Electricity is not something that, should be every day. These are things that we're talking about. The foreign aids, it's, to be honest, it's sometimes it's unfathomable. Like you can't wrap your head around it because it's crazy. We are not supposed, and that's why Donald Trump can do what he's doing. That's why he can say what he's saying, because, like we say in our local parlance, he don't see us finish. He don't see us finish. If we ourselves can stand up, we ourselves can put things in place, we wouldn't be so shaken by so many of these policies made by other countries that now in turn affects us. It shouldn't be so.
Thank you very much. Kimani, same question, but I'm going to read the words of the current WTO leader, World Trade Organization. And that's our own girl, our lady, our own African face, global face, making us proud. Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. A comment at the African Union headquarters in Ethiopia when asked what our opinion on this recent Trump, administration, foreign aid policy. She said, it is time for African countries, African states to attract investment and mobilize resources, as access to aid is a thing of the past. But now, two sectors seems to be pivotal on red alert to be mostly affected on this African aid: health and education. Health and education across Africa. Health and education, which we all know that these are very important. What do you think about this statement? What's your view?
That's very true. Up to at this time and at this juncture, the year we are, 2025, as my colleague said here, we're still depending on foreign aid for medicine. Like right now in Kenya, there was a crisis that there is lack of just condoms because of what Trump announced. That affects such a basic thing in Africa.
Please, doctor is fasting.
No, it's okay. It's a conversation. It's a conversation. Let's move on.
Yeah, but
it's nice
see, this
it's
is
okay.
a very basic item that Kenya or Africa is not manufacturing. We still wait for that from the US. That shows you how deep this problem goes. Because how comes in Africa we have refineries, we have the resources? Why are we not producing anything from ourselves? And on the point of if this or how it looks for Africa, I think there's a very, very great hope for the future. And Africa will rise for only one reason: the masses. If you've heard what's been happening in Kenya, the masses, the younger generation is too educated to keep accepting this as the norm. Because I believe that we've grown up knowing like funding and expecting politicians to work in the same way, but it's not gonna cut it anymore. Today, in my country, the president went somewhere and gave money to a church, yeah, without explaining what it was for. The next time it was tweets online, and people said, we are occupying that church. We are coming to that church to know what the money is for. And they went to that church. It's now like the roads are closed. Why are you getting 20 million for this church? For what? and from where? That is now the younger generation in Africa. We have seen new presidents coming up who are younger and who are thinking differently. Africa needs to go back to the point of production. Africa is the bread basket of the world. Yet in Kenya, I don't know in Nigeria, but in Kenya, there's times we receive even maize.
Let me keep this in
from
quickly.
Europe.
Let me keep this in quickly, and anybody can comment on this after I ask you the following question. There's a clause. There's a
Yeah.
clause in getting all this foreign aid before IMF, and those clauses are not fair. I want you to also make comment on that clause. The clause states open markets. Let me break that down to a 7-year-old. What open markets means?
Mm-hmm.
It means okay, you are going to come and get $30 billion from me. It's fine. We are going to give you, but we want you to have an open market policy within your structure. That means even if you are going to go production, that I'm trying to also have a counter intuition towards your argument.
Yeah.
That means when you get this 30 billion and you have the intention of going into production before, your open market means that you got this aid from us. We have the access also to pump our our products into your economy. That's what open market means literally to a 7-year-old. So how could you compete? Let's say you want to start producing car. How could you compete with Mercedes Benz from the jump? How would you compete with Peugeot from the jump? Do you think this open market policy is fair, or there's nothing called fair when it comes to the economy? It is because we position ourselves in this foreign aid. And I'll give you another instance that I learned in Egypt. To build the Suez Canal, you see, that Suez Canal was going to project economic prospect for Egypt. So they went to IMF. I think the clauses there, the leadership was not happy with the clauses. So they rejected that loan. But you know what they did? You can browse this out. Egyptian citizens, governments taxed all our citizens. People were going to bank to donate out of their own hard-earned money towards the Suez Canal projects. So does it mean that there's nothing fair in this economic warfare going on? It is not a fair game, because from the jump, how could you compete with iPhone if Olumide wants to start his own phone business? How could you compete from the jump? That's open market policy. What do you have to say?
But why would you need to compete for the job when, say, as you said, oil is coming from Nigeria, going to be refined in another country, then being sold back? iPhones, literally, an iPhone will not function without Congo being a country in this world. But we've not built capacity there. So obviously, as you're saying, it cannot function, obviously. We are already at a disadvantage. We have been already pillaged. Things were put and structures were put so that we could be at that point, at that juncture, be the third world country, so that we will never get to that point where we can be producers. So this was a whole plan that has been done. It needs a whole reversal. Even our thinking should be reversed to becoming producers, becoming people who make their own stuff. Say even our clothing, everything we do, we think that it's better to wear Nike than to wear something that's from Africa. But
I was
we
I
in
was
Africa
hoping
wear things.
you're going to say even our clothing, our native clothing, is being
Yeah,
produced in China. What do you have to say to that?
exactly. My name is Antony. I should not be called using the word Antony for Antony Kimani. I should be using two names that are African. See, that is how people, a generation can be indoctrinated to you thinking that what you have is not as superior as something else, and they create our hunger even for their stuff. Yet we can also make our own things. There's vehicles being made in Ghana right now, right? But that is not what Africa is consuming. Someone would rather bring a Mercedes from Europe to Africa, or a G-Wagon.
That,
And that's where the problem is.
Yeah,
are we supposed to?
yeah. Let me
Okay.
just let me chip in a little bit here. So this issue with IMF, or this issue of world body, one thing you need to understand is that why are they functioning? That's one thing. They are there, they are functioning they actually use it to control the world. That is when we go. That's when we go into the politics. You know, all these economic measures that you see, there are so many politics that are attached to them. So they are looking at the way to control the third world country. Let's assume the third world countries are now self-sufficient. So who will they control? So there are always measures by giving you that debt or that kind of money. There are measures to actually triple your power. So that's why most of our countries with that kind of, you cannot even recover from paying the debt. Another debt will come, the interest will be there. At a point in time, the whole country will be controlled by them.
Doctor,
So
from your words, so do you believe Donald Trump is a liar by saying he wants to go nationalist? He doesn't want to go globalist. Do you think he's lying?
he's not lying. If you look at the trend of the world now, if you look at the trend of the world, be in Europe, it started from Europe. If you look at the politics that in Netherlands, in the UK, nationalists are now growing. People are now tired of immigration, people coming to their work, helping people, giving aid to people. The people are now getting more educated. People are getting more aware of what is happening in the world. Even them, they are not sufficient. Why should we give or other people? Let me give you one example. I was passing through a council house. So the guy there is a Scottish. So he was complaining. So when I stopped, he asked me, do I live here? Then I told him no. Then he told me that so many migrants are living here while we, the Scottish people, don't have house. These people are getting free houses. They're getting free money from our government. They are having so many aids from our government. When us, we don't even have food to eat. Why? So we are not going to, that he was just like, they are not going to agree. They are looking for a way to go against the government. So these people are now the nationalists. They are growing. So it's not business as usual. So Trump, as a person, used that mantra to actually campaign and got the faith of these people to vote for him. So any people you come and tell them, okay, America first, Nigeria first, this first, there are some conservative people that will buy that idea and you get vote from them. That's what he used. That's what he used to actually win the vote. And that's what he's doing. I see no problem with what Trump is doing because that's what he promised that he will do. And now he's doing it. It's fine. This is what his people want. They voted him because they want him to do that. And he's doing it. So it's now, as I said earlier, it's now left for the African countries, the African leaders, and Africa as a community to come and sit down and have a vision because we don't have any vision.
Okay, let me keep this question now. We're going into one of the main subtopics now. African leadership challenges.
Mhm.
I was hoping Kenya would be our savior today in this conversation, telling us that's a power.
Let's see.
I felt bad that you understood all the things we were saying about Nigeria. Seems like we were talking about your home country too.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
What unique challenges do African leaders face when trying to navigate US foreign aid policies, especially in the light of the American First Doctrine? What is the problem with African leadership as we stand? Don't you think? Can't we see?
Can I chip in? It's a case of identity, first of all. I think, like my colleague said, even as little as it might be, the name, even our names, it's a thing of identity. The moment so right now what I will say is we're in a phase of imperialism. So it's no longer colonialism, it's a phase of imperialism. So they still control, like the West still controls Africa, at least some parts of Africa, I'll put it that way. So
what are the parts they don't control?
Like
some.
What I'm saying, some countries, I don't want to generalize and say all of Africa. That's what I mean. So some states in Africa, some countries in Africa. So it's just about identity in the first place. The moment we are able to, know what we stand for as a people, I think that's the first where we can say no to certain things. It's just like, a person that has a very low self-esteem and everything is yes, 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 doesn't have the ability to say no. That's a problem for that person. It's almost the same thing if we bring it back to Africa as well. The moment our leadership are able to stand for themselves, there are certain things you can imagine things that are being used up in the West here, and then they'll just send it back and like Africa, the third world country, just take the last of the last. Stuff like that. When you have a leadership that would not accept all of that, would stand up and say, no. You gave an example of what happened with the Suez Canal in Egypt, where people, there's a common identity. The people come together. The Middle East is also an example, like I said initially as well. Once you have a form of identity as a people where we are not fighting each other, Nigeria, that's like our biggest problem. Fighting each other, ethnicity, even the case of religion as well. As long as there is, that form of unity, that's the first step. That's that first step to, breaking free from the shackles of foreign aid. We might need foreign aid. Every country needs aid, but it won't be to the extent where your whole life or the whole nation solely depends on it. You understand? So we need, first of all, to see ourselves, that identity, that focus on ourselves first. Just like you said, the nationalist movement, like with us first, Africa first, Nigeria first, Kenya first, Egypt first. Once we have that mentality, once we have their ideology, things begin to change. It's just, for me, I feel like what is happening in the United States with Donald Trump should be an eye-opener for us as well. We shouldn't take it in bad light, but in good light as well. We should be able to be inspired by it and, move forward. I just hope our leaders can see this.
That's where I want to drive to, because people who have been con men, corrupt, they have a way to always still beat, to crack every system, because their aim is always to beat the system in a corrupt way. Doctor, according to Francis Fukuyama, he gave this road and belt policy that changed the face of Asia. And now he wrote a book, End of History. Going through these policies, I came to Africa and I started looking into policies. It is not alien. This production theory has been swept through the books of Kwame Nkrumah, Gaddafi's Green Book, Alighted Sun. We saw this book spread, even from the ideologies of Patrice Lumumba. And when we come to Africa, Nigeria precisely, there was a time when production was the competition. Cocoa farmers of the West. In the North, we have the Dantata, the Granite Pyramid. The East, they had the steel. And everybody was into this healthy competition of production. Then, in recent time, we've seen this kind of leadership where we can now say corruption and governance in Africa is in tandem. Two questions for you, Doctor. How does Africa now look in the face of international relations? Can we discuss how the rise of alternative partnerships with countries like China and Russia has shifted the landscape for African nations? Will it be seeking foreign aid when USA doesn't want to give foreign aid now? Let us turn to Russia for foreign aid and China? Or this corruption and governance would see is the beginning of the end of the corruption and governance across Africa? We need to be realistic here now. Because the leader of the world has its own enemies. And in the global politics, they are also playing a game of power and dominance. What does this mean for African international relations, Doctor?
Yeah, so basically, the main point or the cut today is mostly on corruption. So we are talking about Africa and the aids from foreign countries. Before I dive into the corruption of our leaders and African leaders, I would just like to talk about the corruption that is involved with the foreign aid. The foreign aid that have been given to Africa, that have been brought to Africa, in itself, the free, what will I say, the free things that have been given to us, in distributing them or giving it to the right people, following the right channel, itself is a problem. There is a big corruption in that area. Let's forget about our leaders now. We are talking of people that have been assigned to actually distribute all these goods. In between them, there is a corruption in the chain before it meets the end user. So one of the reasons why there is policy shift and why this aid needs to be stopped is basically based on the corruption that is involved in distributing the goods. So let's make this fact very clear before you go to Africa. So the process of even distributing them is faulty and is corrupt. So many corruption. Let me give you a very simple example. I'm from Borno State, from Nigeria. That is where Boko Haram started. This is where Boko Haram is largely hit. So the insurgency actually crippled our economy to the barest minimum. In between this, we had like almost 20 to 30 NGOs that came to my state. So in between this short period of time, they came with a lot of wealth, they came with a lot of food, any kind of aid that you can think of, they came with it. So in between it, you try to see that some individuals are just getting richer all the time. You see a new guy getting rich, building a very big house, riding big car. In between them, the white people that actually came were actually they have to actually dance to their tune, and they became like them. So if let's say like $10 billion is maybe sent to the state to do some kind of things, so like almost 50% will go somewhere, and then 50% will be used. So my point here is that even in between the foreign aids and the distribution, there's a corruption. So that's the reason that is stopping.
It's a corruption collaboration.
Collaboration. That's very good. So there is a collaboration. So secondly, as I earlier stated, the problem with all what is happening between the corrupt African leader has to do with when we are colonized, how we got the independence, how the first leaders came, and the succession in leadership actually are all tantamount to that actually resulted to all these kind of corrupt practices. In a place or in a country that a leader refused to dance to the tune of the people that are giving you the foreign aids or to your colonial masters, because what we are in now is a kind of neo-colonialism. It's a kind of new form of colonialism where, in the real sense, we are independent. We have our independence, but in the technical terms, we are not independent. We are still being controlled. Because I was discussing this with one of Nigerian or one of a very big government official. He told me that, see, what we are doing now is that this have to be agreed by the UK, because they are our fathers. Still up to now, I'm telling you, because there's a kind of portion of kind of agreement that is meant to happen. So I asked him, why don't you change? He said, no, we have to still make UK to agree before we sign it. So if you look at some of the French countries, like in North Africa, the Algeria, Morocco, they are well developed and they're doing good. Do you know why? They have to fight. They have to fight and let go the French colony. They have to fight. You know, they went on war to make sure that the grab that the French colony or the France had on them has to be let go. So that's why they are doing very good. In as much as we are still dancing to their tune, we are still in neo-colonialism, this corruption will sustain. If not, like my friend here said, if not, the youths have to come up, they have to take their country back. So in finishing this line, I would say that the last time I had this discussion, I told my friend that the difference between the Western country and African country is like we are still there in the millennial era. We are still in the Stone Age era. A typical black man still thinks like we're in the Stone Age. We don't think how we can actually have a good vision, how we can enhance ourselves, how we can develop very well. In Africa, in 2025, we are still talking about malaria. We are talking about mosquito net. We are talking about some medical aid as a foreign aid. So this is a very sorry case.
Kimani, I'm coming. Olumide, I have a question for you. In line with what Doctor just said, I can see it's very hot. Olumide, you will notice something. That's humanitarian versus military aid. How do you view the prioritization of military aid over humanitarian assistance during Trump's administration? It seems Trump is happy. Trump is happy to actually support military, to give military aid compared to humanitarian aid. So what implication does this have for civil society and long-term development in Africa?
Well, it's easy for Trump to actually support it as long as it's not within his immediate domain. So you guys can fight the
You
war
can kill
where
yourself.
you are, as long as it doesn't come close to me, and we are making money from selling you guys the weapons and all. So at the end of the day, all of this is still politics. Like, even if they are going to push you forward, to go fight and all, you have your head to actually think. And that's the thing with us as Africa. Like, the biggest losers are still Africans. The biggest loser. My brother just talked about what happened in Borno State, in the northeast of Nigeria. We are still the biggest losers. I stayed in the southwestern part of Nigeria, but still, there was always that apprehension that it could still come down there. So we shouldn't have allowed ourselves. We shouldn't put ourselves in that position in the first place. So when we stand up for ourselves, when and it all comes, like I said initially as well, it seeps in gradually.
Do you think oil, the discovery of oil, was a cause, or it was the way our leaders went about it?
Personally, I feel it's the way our leaders went about it. There was no proper planning. It just felt like a child that got money. He got his first millions and he just decided to spend it anyhow he wanted. And then the West were wiser and decided to, help us know how to manipulate it well. So it was more of a curse than a blessing. And even a lot of, like, was it during the week I was listening to Adam Soshomole talk about, solid minerals as well, the abuse of it, the fact that all of these issues of insecurity across the country as well, in Nigeria, they are somehow linked to discovery of solid minerals, taking off solid minerals from Nigeria. So all of this, to me, all of these are more like a curse than a blessing, and it still boils down to leadership. If the leadership is right, there are certain things that will not be permissive in the country. There are certain things that will not be permitted in the African continent. But as long as the leadership is corrupt, as long as the leadership has been compromised, there's only so much that we can do.
Thank you.
So it's a leadership problem.
Thank you very much. Kimani, Kenya seems to be, if not the largest, one of the largest exporting coffee country. You're a rich country. That makes you a rich country.
Yeah, without benefiting from that. Actually, I was reading, I think it was a video I was seeing just the other day, and the lady said, right now, when I was growing up, we used to be told agriculture is the backbone of your country. Agriculture is the backbone of your country. But right now, some study showed that Kenya's economy is being sustained by the diaspora Kenyans who are remitting money back home. They're selling much more than the coffee is earning that we are selling.
Transaction.
Exactly.
What has happened to your coffee? Everybody drinks coffee. What has happened to your coffee?
Coffee is still there, but if you look at the amount of money that people are remitting versus the amount of money being brought in from the sale of coffee, coffee is not working because people are selling the coffee. There's too many middlemen in between. I'm actually trying to do that as well. But the amount of people you have to pay between you getting the coffee from the farm up to Europe, then if you buy one coffee for £2 or £3 here, that is not trickling back to the African continent, and that's everything we do. And as we were saying, it is leadership. But leadership, why do we have a problem with leadership? Why are we not asking the question of, yes, there's a problem with leadership, there's corruption, but why is there corruption? There's this thing about individualism in Africa, Africa, as Africans, we used to be more of communal, like thinking about your good is my good, and the good of everybody. Look at Indians, even in Europe, how they live, how they work. Everyone is the brother. You never know who's who.
Are we not thinking alike now on Street and Cathedral?
We are going there, but we should be there, and then that will sort out the problem of corruption. Because if someone is in a leadership position and is thinking about thinking about the larger masses rather than the individual becoming, wealthy, and that's the problem with our leadership.
So my question,
But right now, like in Kenya, yeah.
my question is, I'm going somewhere with my questions. When an African now gets wealthy, what does he do? Does he not help other African people? Does he not carry people along?
No, he
What's the
builds a longer fence, a longer wall around his house so that the poor ones cannot jump in. That's what we do. We don't spread it out. We want to be idolized. We want to be the only one who made it, the only one with this thing and that thing. That's why even you see, there's a point. There was another time Kenya almost heard. There was some stories about Kenya getting some oil, and all Kenyans were like, "We hope not. We don't want to find oil in Kenya because that will be the beginning of the end of Kenya." You see, because there'll be just a deal between a handful of people with some other country in Europe.
I love Kenya. I would lie.
Yeah.
One of the people who revolutionized my mind was Ngugi wa Thiong'o.
Oh,
I love that.
Oh, yeah, you've read his books.
I read The Trial of the Donkey Martin. I read Matigari. I read Devil on the Cross. I love Kenya. I've read a lot about you. I read about your Mau Mau struggle, and I'm like, wow.
And I think Kenya right now is on another revolution, because now we stopped fighting over, we have a lot of different ethnic communities. That has stopped. Right now, there's only one war, and that is the have and have nots. There's a lot of educated people who do not have jobs, do not have opportunities, do not have this and that. So now it's become political versus the have and have nots. And when each country in Africa gets to the point where those who do not have are tired enough to see that they're seeing these vehicles, they're seeing money being wasted.
Across Africa.
That is something that should keep on growing, because when like the young people in Kenya started going out in the streets, in Uganda it started, in other countries there was, that shift should happen, and that will make sure that the leaders who get elected or the leaders who come in are now aware that people are smarter than before, and people can actually take them into account and accountability.
What happened? Why are people smarter than before?
Because people, I think, like in my country, I think it's just that, when you're hungry and you do not have this and that, you try to find out what is not working and why it is not working. People are now questioning like in Kenya right now, you would find a very young person who did not maybe go out to march in the streets, said, I will do this. I will tell you who owns what. Then he goes to the president's, whatever, goes online and writes for us everything that is owned by the president. Why is this hotel owned by you? Why, people are now getting, because they've gone to school. We've been educating all this young generation. They've gone to university. They don't have work. So they have internet.
No, we are experiencing. So my friend said there's going to be a renaissance before revolution. Renaissance is the awakening of the people. Do you really think we're experiencing that renaissance period now?
Definitely, it is started right now.
So
with
that
this,
means
it's called Gen Z.
What Pascal Lamy said, that 100% it will have a positive ripple effect on Africa. He might be right.
Yes.
No, and let me just chip in here. There is two different aspects here. Education is one thing. People should be smart in one thing. But the most important thing we need to know is the love of country. So no matter how you are educated, and if there's no this nationality in you, there's no love of country. So I don't think there's going to be change. Let me give you a very simple example. In one of the Senate in Nigerian Senate, I forgot, either 6 or 7, is one of the most educated senators.
Is it Senator Natasha?
No, it's not Senator Natasha. I'm talking the whole Senate. I think it is the 7th. I know. So I think it should around the 6th Senate or 7th Senate. If you look at the senators at that time, they are filled with professors and doctors, learned people, technocrats, and at the end of the day, they wasted our 4 years. Because of why? Because there's no love of the country. So no matter how educated we are, how smart we are, if the nationality in you is not there, how will my country get forward? How will I develop our country? If that love and that flame is not there, I don't think there's going to be much to be done.
Okay, this will move us to the last question, and it's going to be 2-in-1 question for everybody. Of course, everybody I've had on this program have always been, asking projection into the future. We've talked about resilience against corruption. Thank you, my Kenyan brother, for letting us know that we are in Renaissance time. Although Doctor has a different opinion.
I
That
also have a
patriotism.
different. I also have a different view
Yeah,
about it as well.
yeah, yeah,
Because I think it's relative to nations.
yeah.
Really,
Mhm.
for Nigeria, Kenya might be there or getting there, but
What happens
Nigeria
to
is not ready.
Nigeria? Are we not
Yeah,
aware?
what is our
What
difference?
is
What is the
the
difference
difference?
here?
Are we not done? Is this not our Renaissance period too?
No, no,
Nah,
no,
from what I see,
no,
no.
no.
We love TikTok and viral
What are they
stuff.
doing on TikTok?
Uh, you should know,
Comedy,
bro.
comedy. You know,
We love comedy. We are not ready.
we're not ready.
That's the
They're
truth.
just doing comedy there,
We are
so
absolutely not
they're
ready.
not ready.
That's the truth.
Uh,
And then there are usually flashes like the NSAS, what happened in NSAS and all. But then even behind it, they are still, we are just not
now.
ready. That's the truth.
This is me going out of my journalist skill, and I didn't. I really think there is something I don't like about we Nigerians, and this is me being honest. We seem to always want to go after the glory. That's why I said the peak of everything we are chasing is elitism.
Yeah, exactly.
Now let us say now, we actually want to, you know, agitate and say, yeah, this is our outcry, and we are going for it. We have a problem of
Mhm.
who is going to lead. Doctor might start to say, Dimeji cannot lead this group. I am the highest, most certificated person here. Olumide will say, no. Why would Doctor lead me? I don't like him. I don't just like him. Doctor has not done anything for him. You say, I prefer Kimani. You ask Kimani and say, no. I'm Kenyan. I'm used to you. You Nigerians cannot dominate me. I don't know why we are made up like that. And it became more profound in this abroad. How do I know? Someone made mention about the Indian communities. Indians have different ethnic groups. I have not seen where they don't welcome, oh, you're from the north, you're from, just to join the Indian community. Amidst themselves, they will know how they will sort themselves. But we from the jump, are you from Nigeria? Yeah. Give me 2 minutes. Where in Nigeria are you from? And even when
So
you
I
come
know how
from
to
my
relate
tribe, I
with
want to
you.
know. So I started to understand that it's different to be certificated and to be educated. To be
Yeah.
educated is a painstaking period. It's
Exactly.
conscious. It's a continuous conscious effort for
Yeah.
you to start stripping yourself off many things that are wrong. And one of those things that will be so difficult, that will be like you are pulling veins out of your body, trust me, cultural sentiment is part of it, tribal sentiment and religious sentiment. Jesus Christ. You have to painstakingly. I do not care if Babagana is a Muslim. I don't even know. Do I even know? This is the first time I will know the state it comes from. I don't bother to. I don't want to know. So far as from Nigeria, that's the identity I want to associate with. But we
Exactly.
have people who have problem with that. Kimani, trust me, you look like me. Even
Mhm.
to these Europeans, they categorize all of
Yes,
us as one Africa. We
yes.
know that we have 54 countries. But at the back of our mind, when I see you say, oh, he's from Kenya, he's not part of me, and they are confused. And they're like, you guys are the same, you look alike. And that is an advantage. That's one, too. Every movement, people want it to serve an advantage to them. Let me give you an instance. NSAS. NSAS was the movement of the people. Then we started seeing some people trying to fight as if they were the face. They started
Yeah.
it. Why? Because they wanted to be the ones to be called to the table of negotiation. Every structure must have an organization. Don't get me wrong. But when it has become your own, your own move, your own intention to want to be, they want to spearhead every movement, just like they did. When Jonathan, they were marching against Jonathan's what was that? Occupy Nigeria.
Yeah. 2011, I
Every
think, also.
single person who did that Occupy Nigeria now, where are they? Babagana, they're in Canada, USA, Australia. Once they were called to the negotiation table, an offer was made, and they started to be the ones to start cooling off the tension. Then, boom, they politicized it, they leveraged on it for their own advantage, and they switched to becoming one of the elites. So, in This Renaissance period, we have to be 10 times smarter. This is not me. This is not you trying to follow anybody blindly. Don't follow me blindly. Even me, I'm speaking. Don't follow me blindly. Question my integrity. Question people's. Do not throw yourself open to Shehu Kuti just because he's a celebrity. Question people's integrity. Question their integrity, and that I think would help us in this Renaissance period to move into a meaningful revolution. And the revolution we are talking about, please be educated enough to know that we are talking about intellectual revolution, ethical revolution, cultural revolution, the revolution that are germane to strip us of this deep-rooted problem that we are in. Revolution, you go to the street and scatter things and go back, trust me, you've lost from the jump. So my final question, I'm back to my journalism skill now. 2 questions in one. What is the future of foreign aid as it stands now? Do you think it will be politicized? Leverage upon another superpower, Chinese now, saying, okay, let us be the one to give them to be the one in charge of this foreign aid now. They are already used to it. So, do you think foreign aid is going to be a playground of superpowers in Africa? A playing tool as one. Research and policy formation. If you are going to if you are going to advise African leaders now, what are the key areas of policy formation you are going to advise them with? Those are the 2 questions, and we call it a quit. We call it a wrap.
Okay, I think let me start. So your first question, you are talking about the future of foreign aids. What are the future of foreign aids? The future of foreign aids depends with the country and the nationality. In the first place, we should ask ourselves, why do we need foreign aids? Number 2, can we do without foreign aids? This is what we should ask. This for the countries to actually decide. Then now, the future of foreign aids now is a show of superpower. The world now it has to be political and the show of superpower. We have the US in one hand, we have the China, and we have Russia now. So most of the foreign aids that
And
we
we
get
have the
are mostly
although
UAE. No, UAE is a small player. We're talking of the main ones. We are talking of the main actors, the ones that are actually changing the world. So now the rising of China and Russia actually changed the world dynamics. So that's why you're seeing the West and the US are now crying foul, jumping and shouting. When you talk of technology, these people have their technology. If you talk of money, they have the money. They have everything to compete against these people. So that's why there's so much of them crying foul. So the future now depends on the power play played by Russia and China to their counterpart, Western powers. So the point is, Africans now have an alternative. I'm talking on the positive part now. They have an alternative to shift their loyalty to either China and Russia, which they are doing with China. Because most of the infrastructure that has been going on and that is being built in Africa now, I can tell you 60 to 70% is by China. And again, the negotiation terms and the impact that they make is more than the negotiation terms that have been done by the Western powers. So now the Africa as a country or as a nation or as a continent is very much more flexible and very much more comfortable doing business with China for now. So there is a tilt in power from the West to the East and Russia now. So when you talk of military now, like what is playing out in Mali, Burkina Faso, especially in West Africa, the power struggle between these francophone countries and their father, or let's say their colonial father, which is France. Russia actually is the one that is dictating what is happening. It has come to actually play its own part. What is happening in Ukraine is same scenarios in most of these areas. In Sudan, in Congo, the scenario is playing. So there is not even in only it, even in political aspect, there is a tilt from the Western power to China and France and Russia. So this is the future. Then for how the African leaders can actually have an impact, how they can actually grow our economy, they have to sit down and have a very good vision. They need to know why we're there. No country is better than or bigger than any other country. We need to sit down and develop ourselves. We need to be self-sufficient. We don't need to be depending on any other countries for all these little areas. We can actually do it by ourselves. I think our leaders have to sit up. They have to have a vision. Organization like ECOWAS and AU have to do better. They have to sit down and come up with policies they have to come with policies that will see how African countries can grow. I think that's the only thing I'll say.
Thank you very much. Olumide, same question. What do you think?
So I will just start with our leadership, like I've been saying. I can't overflow the issue as regards our leadership. There has to be, our leaders need to go back to the drawing board. And also our people need to also have a mindset change as well, to be able to hold our leaders accountable. I think my colleague said something about, getting the foreign aids and then, not getting down to the people it's supposed to even get down to. All of this starts with accountability as well. If you ask the right questions, you sometimes ruffle feathers. That's the way it is. A average man on the streets of Nigeria does not even know, like, that we're getting foreign aids, that we're getting assistance and all. And that's supposed to be his responsibility as a citizen. Over here in the UK, like the average, they speak with their MP, A average Nigerian does not even know who is local government chairman is. He doesn't even have access to it. And these are the things that needs to be changed. The system in itself has to be changed as well. So questions should be asked. Our leaders as well, they should, be able to draw up a timetable, like a vision table rather, to know what needs to be done. I can't imagine in the next 50 years we are still on this conversation as regards foreign aid. It didn't take Dubai so long to, become what they are today. These are people, like, even if we say, okay, we don't have anyone we can look towards, Dubai is, we can look to Dubai. How did they improve? How did they grow? They did not necessarily need, and the truth is Africa has all it takes. Solid minerals, natural resources, and all of it. We have all it takes. It's just about us applying ourselves in terms of us asking the right questions. If we don't ask our leaders the right questions, if we don't push them, they won't, they wouldn't sit up. So once they know our people would definitely ask questions, our people want accountability, they themselves, they will know that being president, being governor, being the local government chairman, being a senator, I'm not just going there for 4 years to while away time, to waste my time. I'm also going there to work. And that's where it all starts. Our people need to be accountable. Our people need to ask the right questions, and our leaders need to sit up as well. Once they're able to sit up, once they're able to, have a vision, you're going there 4 years, you have to serve your people. You're not just going to be there for going sake. You're not just going to go cap in hand to just ask for foreign aid. We would see significant improvement from our people in Africa as a whole, the moment we're able to sit up. That's what I think.
Thank you very much. Kimani, do you have another view, or let us hear your opinion? The same question.
I think it's kind of similar, but I think the change will only come once everyone in Africa realizes, or we start even not calling this foreign help or fund, but just call it neo-colonialism. Let's just call it what it is. This is just a hold on our continent. If we start referring to it as a hold on our continent, a hold on our mental state as Africa, we cannot always say that the world won't function without Africa, yet we have all the resources, yet we do not produce. We also do not work together. If the whole of Africa was to unite, what was the dream of maybe Gaddafi?
Yeah.
If Africa was to unite, right now, when we're calling foreign aid and we are now shifting either from Russia to America, we are still being torn apart. Not all of us will go this side, not all of us will go to that side. We act like we need help instead of being self-sufficient ourselves first, and then coming to a level where we will compare to them and we will know who we want to align with. but not because they're going to give us something, but because of what we have and what we can give to the globe. If we stop thinking and start thinking as Africa, we have everything. That's when there's gonna be a shift change, even in our leadership.
Thank you very much. Before I end this session, I want to read this comment and react to the comments by Okpeyemi Adebayo. He said, and even we Africans are divided among ourselves. Well, the question is, are Americans united? Are Europeans united? Even in the United Kingdom, where I am right now, the four countries, England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales, are they really united based on cultural orientation? But we can always agree on germane things like the survival of our collective people, survival of our posterity and race, survival of our nation. Those are very, very sacrosanct things that we must not debate about. No tribe wants to go on extinction. So when we have our petty sentiments, I wouldn't lie, and Doctor wouldn't lie. There will be some petty sentiments in their tribe that is so known to him about my people. There are petty sentiments in my own tribe that I know about his own people. There are petty sentiments. We see it reflecting online. Kenya, Nigeria versus Nigeria. Does it mean that you are not my friend Kimani? When they have this banter, Ghana and Nigeria has always been in this toxic relationship. this this toxic relationship, but they will never break up. That is allowed. That is the beauty of humanity. Yeah. But there are some things that we cannot toy with. And please, things like that can never be politicized. And like you mentioned, Gaddafi, I would also give reference to Kwame Nkrumah, the one who brought the idea of United States of Africa, and many leaders as well who have died on these ideals, which we feel and believe that one day these ideals will stand. Brothers, I cannot thank you enough for your time, your lovely contributions. I know many people have taken notes down. Like I said, this was a class session. It was not just a mere argument. I appreciate you, and posterity will remember this because we added our voice to the ongoing issues. We weren't quiet. And I know the motherland will favor us. They say fortune favors the bold. We were bold enough to render our voice to the ongoing struggle, antecedents, realities, and predicaments. I want to thank you for saying yes to join me on this platform. I want to thank you for sparing your time. I know you guys are busy people. I'm in the United Kingdom, so I know when they say per hour, they pay you per hour. Now to have lovely brothers who are saying, look, I'm going to give you like 2 hours. Come on. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. God bless you. And I'm going to send you a link of this. I will edit it. It will be posted on YouTube and Spotify. It will be on Apple Podcast. It will be on Prime Music. I'll share the links. You can share it with your network. The most important thing is to make it available so people can access it from different platforms that they are comfortable with. Thank you very much. And till we see again, I just want to say that one day at that echelon on the top, maybe when it's our time, we'll remember this and say, we always knew that we'll witness a better Africa. So thank you very much, brothers. And God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
This is where I George Cotton, and I say we'll
Thank
meet next week for another interesting session. Streets and Cathedral. I remain the Major Shodeke. Bye for now.
Bye, Kimani.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.